Next up, we have the Texas Department of Transportation, Peter Espy, the Rail Division Director, and Mark Werner from the TXDOT Rail Division. If you want to find out about Peter's bio, again, all the bios of everyone are on the website, texasrailadvocates.org. Go to the conference page and you'll find everything listed. But quick capsule version here. Peter originally started his work with Amtrak in the Northeast Corridor. He's also run railroads in South America, both freight and passenger railroads. And we're glad to have him here at TXDOT as our Rail Division Director. So if you'll please welcome Peter Espy and Mark Werner, who have some updates for us. All right. Thank you much. Go for it.
Thank you, Peter, for this invitation to present to Texas Rail Advocates. And good morning. Mark, as you can see, is joining me here. He and I will give you a brief update on activities at TXDOT's Rail Division. The division presently has a staff of 33 located at headquarters in Austin and in the field. In addition to the rail planning and programming section, which Mark heads, we have a rail safety section and a rail highway section. These two sections were transferred back into the rail division towards the end of 2017. The rail safety section has 15 positions and is led by Luke Chisenhall. They work in conjunction with the federal inspectors in the FRA Rail Safety Program. They inspect motive power and equipment, track, grade crossing signals, operating practices, and hazardous materials transport. The rail highway section has 8 positions and is led by Robert Travis. They administer the grade crossing improvement program, which uses federal and state funds. They also provide project coordination wherever there is an interface between a TXDOT road project and a railroad. I am assisted by Gil Wilson, our Rail Systems Administrator. Gil, known to many of you, is Mr. Railroad at TXDOT. The Rail Division, along with the other modal divisions, maritime, aviation, public transportation, report to Deputy Executive Director Mark Williams. This year, Rail Division's budget is $13.6 million. The amount varies from year to year according to the funding of the projects we are managing. TXDOT's budget for the year, the total agency budget, is $14.1 billion. You've heard a little bit about the perspective here between highway activities, road activities, and non-road activities. Projects we are working or have recently completed are the following. In Laredo, Union Pacific and Kansas City Southern have rail lines traversing urban areas with numerous grade street crossings. These two lines lead to a single track International Railroad bridge to Mexico. Rail Division engaged a consultant to develop a list of short, medium, and long-range projects to address delays and congestion. The report was completed in mid-2018 and provided to local authorities. A grade crossing analysis study for the development of a program of crossing upgrades in the Austin-San Antonio corridor was completed in mid-2018. This study was done with the participation of the Union Pacific Railroad, and its findings are included in the Capital Alamo Connection Study being undertaken by TXDOT's Transportation Planning and Programming Division in partnership with the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. The Valley View project here in the Metroplex area is speeding the flow of commuter, Amtrak, and freight operations by constructing a 1.4 miles of second track, including a new bridge and at-grade crossing elimination on the Trinity Rail Express line between Dallas and Fort Worth. Construction began in October 2017 and finished in July the following year. Rail Division is providing fiscal oversight and construction review for a project to replace the existing single-track bridge over Broadway near the Port of Houston with a new double-track bridge. The project includes signal and track work. The parties to the project agreement include the Port Terminal Railroad Association. Construction began in November 2018. Rehabilitation of the state-owned South Orient Railroad continues with the track project currently underway in Upton, Crane, and Crockett counties. Texas Pacific Transportation, the lessee who is operating the railroad, is rebuilding the bridge at Presidio to reconnect the line to the Mexican railroad system in Ojinaga on the other side of the Rio Grande. Mark Werner will describe some of the projects he and his people are working on, including the update to the Texas Rail Plan. In other areas that are within the Rail Division's responsibility, TXDOT has an agreement with Amtrak to partially fund the operating costs of the Fort Worth, Oklahoma City Heartland Flyer. The present arrangements expire at the end of this fiscal year. TXDOT will submit via an exceptional item request to the legislature continuation for the funding support at the same level for the next 2 fiscal years. The draft environmental impact statement for Texas Central's Dallas-Houston high-speed rail project was published in the Federal Register in December 2017. Project assessment and comment review continues with a decision by the Federal Railroad Administration on the final environmental impact statement are now expected at the end of 2019. TXDOT's role with the project has been to provide assistance to the FRA in reviewing the draft environmental impact statement and assistance with public outreach. While TXDOT is required to include the project in its purview of transportation projects, it is prohibited by Rider 47 from using state funds on high-speed rail projects. In addition to its inspection duties, the Rail Safety Section handles the calls from the public that come in via the railroad hotline, a phone line call-in. The number one topic of complaint is blocked crossings, with the number of these calls increasing in frequency. This is not surprising given the trend to more and longer freight trains on a slimmed-down railroad network and the growth of urban areas and traffic on the roads. In Texas, state regulations about blocking crossings were vacated in 2005 due to the federal preemption of interstate commerce. Some states have retained their anti-blocking statutes and have indicated that they intend to challenge federal preemption on the grounds of safety. Following block crossings as a source of numerous complaints are train horn noise, rough roadway surface at crossings, and malfunctioning crossing protection equipment. I know this is just a very brief overview, but it does give you a quick sample of the sorts of things that we are involved in and the rules under which we operate. Well, with this, I will turn it over to Mark Werner, who will tell you a little bit more about the rail plan.
Thank you, Peter. All right, I appreciate the opportunity to speak for you today. Some of you may have seen this presentation before, so my apologies for that. But as I said, we're updating the state rail plan. One of the things, why are we doing that? Well, there's state and federal requirements that the state have a rail plan and be updated every 4 years now with the federal regulation and 5 years with the state. So what this does is it gives us an opportunity. I mean, we try to stay in dialogue with our real stakeholders year round. This gives us an opportunity to meet officially and update, find out what the system needs, what the needs for the railroads are, and put that into a plan. And we can use that to take to our legislature to show, what the rail needs are across the state of Texas. Since we are prohibited from legislating in the legislature, this is one of our ways that we can put that information out in front of the decision makers so they can hopefully get us some money. Because I know Peter had pointed out that most of our funding goes for highways, and in our own defense, that's legislatively we're required to do that, but hopefully that can change. So, but the important part of having the rail plan is it makes us eligible for funding, for federal funding through the FRA. And we've gotten several grants for that. One of the ones that we did was Tower 55, maybe about the big interlocker in DFW. We added a third main track that helped improve the number of trains that can go through that interlocker. And also Peter mentioned the Valley View project, which originally was a 50-50 grant with DART to double track that line. And one of the goals of that was to shift Amtrak from the UP line between Dallas and Fort Worth to the TRE line, to try to improve some on-time performance and reduce conflicts with the freight railroads. So, and this is kind of just the status of what we've been doing. We had our passenger and stakeholder meetings in September and October to get their input on what they felt the needs were for the network, for the system coming up. And then we also had our public meeting on December 31st. And as Peter mentioned, that's is available online, and please go online, submit your comments. You can also, the easiest way I found to do it is just to Google Texas Rail Plan, and it pops up pretty easily. It's a lot easier than going to TXDOT's website to find it. So, but we really appreciate if you would log on, give us your comments, submit your ideas, and then so we can move forward with including those in the rail plan. This is just kind of the schedule of where we're at. Like I said, we had our stakeholder meetings. In our public comment period, we'll all go through all the way to the end of May. We're going to be coming out with another round of stakeholder meetings in February with the passenger and freight railroads. And then our plan is to have the draft plan out towards the end of April, and then we'll be accepting comments and making revisions to the plan and have the final plan out by the end of August. Okay, I'm going to go over a little more about what Peter, the other functions that the rail division does. We're the highway grade crossing program. We're responsible for the Section 130 funds, which is for improvements to grade crossings. And also, as Peter mentioned, we work with the railroads on construction agreements when we're expanding and modifying our roadways to make sure that we don't impact the railroads and their operations, and make sure that everything is done safely. So, as you can see, we've had 87 of those agreements completed so far this year. We have 7 signal projects so far this year. And another thing that we do is just regular improvements to grade crossings. And in the past, the TXDOT districts have done the plans for those crossings, and there's 25 districts across the state. And with their workload with other highway projects, they haven't been able to get to a lot of those, so we haven't been able to spend all of our Section 130 funds. So the Rail Division has a couple of consultants on board that we're assisting the districts in developing those plans so we can try to get more of those grade crossing improvements done and spend all the money we have for that project. Okay, and then Peter also mentioned the rail safety inspectors. The Railroad Commission, which was in charge of railroad regulation, was created in 1891. In 1966, with the Department of Transportation Act, the FRA was created, and a lot of that function was shifted to the FRA to make it more a uniform system across the nation. Instead of having railroads being regulated by every state, they had one regulation system. And then in 1983, the FRA created a program for participation with the states. And there's 32 states that are participating in that program with 200 inspectors across the state, and 14 of those are in Texas. And as Peter mentioned, they do all 5 of the of the track disciplines for the FRA. And in 2005, all the railroad functions from the Railroad Commission were transferred to TXDOT. So the only thing the railroad that stayed with the commission was the name, which you can't really blame them. The Railroad Commission sounds a lot cooler than the Pipeline Commission. So, yeah, these are the studies that that my section is involved in. We're doing a freight study in the DFW area that we just started off. It's looking at improvements to freight improvements, capacity to increase capacity, increase fluidity in the rail network, and also passenger improvements. And we'll also be looking at grade separations to reduce vehicular conflicts. And this study is being done in 2 phases. The first phase is modeling of the BSN and the DART and the passenger rail lines. And the modeling for that is actually being done by BNSF. And that will be, it's completed, and we're just reviewing the results right now. And there's some projects coming out of that. And then in the second phase, TXDOT with our consultant will be modeling the entire region. And we're looking at all the rail lines in the DFW to look at what improvements can be made to increase the freight network, the fluidity of the freight network. And in the phase 2, there will be we'll not be looking at any addition of any passenger rail lines in that. And that we're hoping that study will be done at the end of this year. Another study that we're just finishing up right now is a bridge site study. Union Pacific came to us. This has been a real issue for them, and actually it's an issue for TXDOT too, where a lot of oversized vehicles are striking their bridges. And so we agreed, hey, we'll take a look at that and see what we can do. So we contacted the other railroads to get a list of their bridges across the state that have a high incidence of being hit. And we went out, so we had 62 bridges that we looked at. We went out, physically looked at the locations to determine what kind of mitigation measures that we could install to try to limit the strikes there. We're looking at additional warning signs, flashing lights. There's even some devices that'll hang down prior to the bridge, so if the truck comes through, it'll hit it and then warn them, and hopefully they can detour and get around that. So that study is, like I said, we're just doing the final touches on that, and that'll be completed at the end of this month. Now this right here, some of you may know this location. This is State Highway 183 in Fort Worth. And this happened Tuesday morning. So this is if you look at the picture there, that's a UP line. That second bridge is an old spur track that's not being used. And the bridge down further is the TexRail line. And so this guy, I don't know if he didn't lower his boom down or it came up while he was driving, but as you can see, he got jammed in there. So you can put up warning signs, but there's going to be this kind of stuff that you may not be able to mitigate for. So, but another thing about this study is the Fort Worth District is working on a project to widen this. If you're familiar with this, it goes from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes under the bridges. So the TXDOT Fort Worth District wants to widen that to 4 lanes, and we're working with Union Pacific to see if we can raise that bridge a little bit to give us a little more clearance, because they have to, otherwise they've got to lower the grade on there, and there's a creek down at the far end that if we lower it too much, the sag point of the roadway will be below the flow line of the creek, which will obviously cause problems during heavy rains. Okay, and then another study that we're hoping to get started next month is to be a Houston-Beaumont regional freight study. Very similar to what we're doing in DFW. The only difference there is we won't be looking at any passenger rail improvements or addition of new passenger service to that. But again, we'll be looking at increasing freight fluidity and also looking at grade separations to improve vehicular mobility through the Metroplex. And that, like I said, we hope to kick that off in February, and it'll be finished around the first part of next year. So that's pretty much all I have, and be happy to answer any questions.
This is your rare opportunity to ask TXDOT a question, so please use a microphone.
Yeah, and please go to the rail plan and let us know if you got short line railroads. Contact us. Let us know what your plans are, so we can try to incorporate that into the rail plan, because that'll help get federal funding if you want to go that route in the future. So, yes.
So with respect to the rail plan, as we had talked,
There you go.
It's on. With respect to the rail plan that we talked on earlier, though that comment period has been extended over till May
Yeah,
of
we're
19.
keeping the comment period out, and then it'll extend once the draft plan comes out, so the public everybody can look at it and then send in their comments on the draft. So yeah.
And Director Espy, did I understand you to say 13 million for the rail plan, and the total TXDOT budget was 14B?
Yes.
14 billion.
Billion,
Yes.
billion, not million, billion.
So that would be less than 1,000th of 1%.
Yes, yes, that's correct.
That was quick math. But, and let
That's
me
why
ask you this.
Peter needs to be successful. So.
On the issue with respect to the bridge incident which you showed us on Tuesday,
Uh-huh.
and you mentioned short-term and long-term solutions, would the possibility of administering a mandatory IQ test to truck drivers, would that be a potential short-term solution?
That would certainly help, because this isn't just a railroad problem. I mean, we have problems out in West Texas where someone will go down the highway and hit one bridge, and they just keep right on going
Keep
and
on
hit
going.
the other one. So we had a meeting with a company Tuesday they set up sensors on bridges to determine, if it's been struck and kind of the severity, which is important, because when a railroad bridge gets stuck, they have to shut down their network to make sure that there's no damage. They can still run that train across here. And actually, a couple weeks ago, UP had a bridge that was severely hit, and I can't remember the name of the city, but they shut their line down for a couple days, because there was some serious damage to that. No, Tyson, yeah, when was that? TXDOT roads too, yeah, and they have. Right, and UP has a bridge over I-10 in Houston that we had to shut down I-10 one weekend so they could do repairs to that bridge because it gets repeatedly struck. So hopefully these measures, we can kind of prevent
We
that.
appreciate your collective efforts, and we'll be submitting comments with respect to our Fort Worth, Atlanta
Yes. yeah,
Amtrak
okay,
connection
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Oh, wait. Yes, sir.
Appreciate TXDOT requesting continued funding on the Fort Worth, Oklahoma City Amtrak service. Is you mentioned a special exemption request from the legislature. Is that the same pipeline of funding that you currently use?
No. Well, it's an exceptional item request. In the past, it had been in our base budget, but it is being presented as an exceptional item. So it needs to be voted on specifically as a specific item. There's a list of several of these, and it'll be included in this list that will specifically need to be approved by the legislature. It won't be a component of the overall TXDOT budget.
That's a request that we make every session for Amtrak, for that Heartland Flyer. That's not automatically in our budget. We have to request that funding
Okay,
every session.
so that's not a new process then.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Very much, guys.
All right.
All right, thank you. Good job.